Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Smith, and you are listening to The Wayward Wanderer. Welcome, everyone, to The Wayward Wanderer. As always, I am your host, Ryan Smith. And today we have several trans heathen practitioners who are on to talk about their understandings of heathen practice and their particular perspectives on heathenry, particularly in the times that we find ourselves facing in these days. So if you all could please introduce yourselves, and whoever would like to jump in first.
Hi, my name is Puck Mugwort. I have been a practicing heathen for about 3 years, and I've been a practicing witch for much longer. I am transmasculine. I use he, they pronouns, and I'm also a musician, and that's a little bit about me.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth. I've been doing heathenry, practicing for a year and a half, 2 years now. I've been transitioning for 7 years, trans femme, so she, her pronouns, and that's about it for now, yeah.
Hi, my name is Dee. I have been a practicing heathen this point for about 13-ish years, give or take. I've been a magical practitioner for longer than that. I am gender fluid. I use they, them pronouns, and that pretty much covers my end of things.
What first drew each of you to heathen spiritual practice?
Loki set me on fire. That's not a joke. That literally happened. Or almost set me on fire.
I was looking for some sort of group, got an invitation to a winter solstice thing, and they were passing the horn for other deities, and then the horn went around for Freyr, and I very clearly heard him say, we need to talk.
I found my way to paganism, heathenism through researching my ancestry, and after a lot of issue with the church growing up, it just spoke to me. So I started looking into that, and I found my way to fire and ice, and it just speaks to me. It feels right. So that's how I got here.
And I'm gonna explain just a little bit more beyond the Loki set me on fire, is that both Loki and Odin had been these weird presences floating around in my spiritual life for a very long time before I actually started to call myself a heathen. And I honestly, for a very long time, didn't want anything to do with them because Nazis. And it took the getting set on fire, or almost set on, my altar got set on fire. I did not get set on fire. To really it's okay, I can't ignore this anymore.
And I had been working with Brigid for years and years and years, so I wasn't unfamiliar with the idea that gods could sometimes get your attention in really obvious ways. Needless to say, though, I was not expecting Freyr to just be that obvious. I mean, now it's sort of like, okay, obvious Freyr is obvious. But at the time, it came out of the blue.
And it's just like when I found Heathenry, it just like everything made sense. It was like, okay, this is how I feel like I need gods to work. And like I come from a chaos magic background and, like create your own reality, all of that. And it was like, this is how I need gods to work. And that's how they work.
How does heathen spirituality affirm your gender identities?
I suppose the obvious answer would be the heathen spirituality allows there's so much more room in it for interpretations of things, but the obvious answer is Loki's gender fluid. Why can no other person be that? Like in any shape or form? So there's tales and fables of these things exist, and it makes it a little more easy to, I suppose the word makes it easier for me to look at it in that way, I guess.
My experience with heathenry, it's in not the stories of the gods, but the sagas from like history, effectively, where there is a reference to the priests of Freyr and their unmanly clattering of bells. And yes, the people we call heathens in that time period definitely had some solid gender roles, but there was a lot more flexibility.
What are some examples from Nordic myth that you feel especially speak to you on this?
I personally kind of feel like something that really speaks to me as like a gender nonconforming individual is a lot of the documentation of Odin and Loki's gender bending throughout the Eddas, and um this that was, I think, one of the big things that really drew me to heathenry in the beginning. Is as just as somebody who really deeply resonates with trickster gods just in general throughout the entirety of my magical career, is that that they have this like perfect set of very gender bending trickster gods, and it makes me feel seen, you know.
Yet that is almost exactly the same sentiment that I have. There's just the the tale of Loki birthing the mare, and is probably the one that speaks to me the most, that sticks in my head the most. but there are those examples of obvious non-conforming to standard gender roles and to standard gender conformity of what they generally presented as, and it seems to really stand out, and it helps affirm the fact that we don't have to be what we were born as. We can be who we really are.
So for me, there was a period of time where I was delving a little bit into the whole concept of ergi, which Ryan, you may have to explain a little bit about that, but it was the idea that people could be performing things that were not quote unquote meant for their gender, and Odin doing seership when that's usually associated with women in the lore, that sort of thing popping up did kind of ring bells for me, as it were.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that a lot, especially as a male seer. I have Augur tattooed, or the like. I like the idea of sort of intentionally reclaiming that for myself as a man who is doing Sather in the modern world, and yeah.
What do you all think about the general tendency, both by particularly white nationalists, but also significant chunks of the heathen community and even in popular culture, to portray the Nordic peoples and myths that are sort of the foundation of modern heathenry as being this sort of hyper masculine, manly he-man kind of world?
I find it hilarious in general. Like, to watch them think that everything is, to watch these white nationalists and these my ancestors were Vikings people go around and think that the gods were these overly masculine, over muscle bound like characters of masculinity and bastions of like racial purity and stuff. You obviously have never actually studied or read any of the actual stories or anything. Obviously, there is no basis for that in reality. So it to me, that part is hilarious. Now, I work in a very public industry. I work in a very retail forward industry, and I wear a Mjolnir on my neck every day, and there are some customers who see it and react. And just in my store, literally last night, I saw this guy, and he had a bind rune tattooed down the back of his forearm, and I caught a glimpse of him walking away, and there was a Vegvisir on the back of his neck. And I tend to not interact with people when I see them with these tattoos or things, because I don't know who they are. I don't know how what their thoughts are on this. If they're just wearing this because they think that this is cool stuff, or if they're a pagan, or if they're the right kind of pagan. Um, but I see this, and he looked like one of these overly masculine guys, and it always just right in the front of my head. I'm like, not sure if you really know your source material there.
I will say that most of what you hear from these manly men, Vikings were the ultimate masculine, blah, 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 is that literally none of them put any thought, focus, whatever into the Vanir, with the maybe exception of Freya, but then she's just Odin's wife. And she's like the ideal of what a woman TM should be. But like Elizabeth said, they're really all the rest of the lore where, Freyr is the love-struck fool who falls in love with a giantess, where Njord is chosen for his beautiful feet, where these gods are not what the current fixation on hypermasculinity actually represent.
Yo, and I always think it's like mad funny when like these like fucking Viking bros like hold Odin specifically, and it's always Odin as like this pinnacle of masculinity, when it clearly shows that they have not read any of the lore, because I think Odin is probably the opposite of a pinnacle of masculinity, at least the kind of masculinity that they're talking about. And it's very, very funny to me. Things that make me laugh.
Oh, like we even have examples in the lore of Thor cross-dressing, which gets us some of the greatest written comedy that's in the sagas, of Loki coming up with increasingly impressive justifications for why everything's okay.
Yeah.
I have a brilliant meme for this literal topic, but I can't share them here. But I will have to send it to someone. I'll send it to you, Ryan, and you can share it wherever you want. It is wonderful for this exact topic.
Is it that one with from the Elton John biopic?
No, it's James
Oh,
Corden.
you were thinking of that meme? I was thinking of that meme, Ryan.
It's James Corden in a car. From his like sing along driving or whatever they call that.
I'll have to see that one. And there's like, for anyone who's spent some time in heathen spaces, there's lots of these kind of memes that float around in inclusive spaces about this. What do you all think about those memes?
I've made some of them. I was the one who made the terrifyingly cringy Odin's little wolfie meme. I was very manic when I made that meme. So funny.
I love these memes personally.
Clearly, I was going to say, clearly these memes are made by people who get it.
The meme that I made was like average Viking masculinity fan versus average Andy enjoyer.
What would you all say to anyone who claims this is all too political, or inserting politics into spirituality?
Well, I did have a
I
situation
would basically say, go ahead.
I was gonna say I did have a situation where that happened with some dude, and it ended up with him saying it was him drunkenly saying it was okay to be a Nazi at this like Park show, and some crust punk beat him up. And that's what happened last time somebody told me this was too political. So, yeah.
Existence is political.
Existence is political. Everything's political. You know,
If you are even remotely quote unquote marginalized, then any action taken is, either it's to your benefit or it's to your harm. And politics just sort of comes up. And we live in a world where is significant overlap. Also, have you noticed how political Christianity is, at least in the United States?
And, for a little historical perspective on that, religion has been the biggest political football ever. Like, anyone who spends any amount of time looking at medieval history will see that the Pope was mostly a football. How do you think that matters now, of people making that kind of statement now, particularly in the times that we're living in?
and it's like when people like try to not be political, they're actually just they're just on the side of the right wingers. By not doing anything, you're making a statement. Apoliticism is political.
Silence can only be beneficial to the oppressor, not the oppressed.
Exactly.
And basically, anybody who makes that statement is far more invested in hiding their head in the sand and going with what they think makes them quote unquote safe. So they tend to be the ones who have the least to worry about.
So to segue from that into, I guess we could say, much rougher and more immediate waters, there is a growing wave of particularly anti-trans legislation, persecution, government policy that has been developing not just in the United States, but also in other places like the United Kingdom, in Poland and Hungary, and several other places around the world, and quite a few media outlets who will not be named, other than the New York Times and the BBC, who have been treating this as if it's a debate between two equal sides. What are things that you all think that anyone who is cisgendered, who is not trans or gender fluid, can do in these times where we're seeing, that CPAC, Conservative Political Action Committee, for example, that one pundit whose name is escaping me because he doesn't need to be celebrated, calling for elimination of quote unquote transgenderism from public life. What can we do? What can people do in these kind of times when this is what the temperature is in society?
Buy your local trans person a big gun.
The biggest.
The biggest gun.
That's a really great immediate threat stopper, but in the long term, we need people to stand up to their they need to be calling and writing their Congress people and voting for people who actively stand up for trans people, who stand up for the rest of the LGBTQIA plus community, who stand up for the rights of people to just literally exist. Like, it is in a position where existence is questioned right now, and not just, you know, transitioning and whatnot. It is literally the lives of trans people being threatened, and
Yeah, that.
it's awful. Um, so far this year, 43 states have proposed bills, and it's been over. We are in the third month. We are halfway through the third month, and we're almost at 400 anti-trans legislation bills across the country trying to be passed. And you have the former president going on and saying that he will eradicate transgenderism. And then, as Ryan mentioned, that pundit that was talking about it, it's just, it's horrible. And what we need is people to stand up and vote properly, pay attention to who you're voting for, and be vocal. Be vocal, because nothing's going to get done if you just kind of silently support people.
I will point out that ally is a verb. It is an act. If you are going to do anything, absolutely vote. Put your money where your morals are if you can. If you have lottery, most of us don't. It's not like we're swimming in cash, but there are organizations out there that are taking the fight on and do need the support. So, political, again, is our events, and people, whether they consciously intend it or not, are trying to wipe us out of existence. And I know the name of the pundit in question. The initials are MK. I'm not going to go further than that. He's an objectionable human being. One of my previous jobs, I was reviewing ads. So he came up a lot, and his active antagonism towards trans people came up a lot. So, there are a lot of anti-trans voices out there. We don't have nearly as many pro-trans voices.
Is there anything that you would all like to share before we wrap things up that you feel hasn't been covered enough, or hasn't been covered already?
I guess I wanted the chance to maybe talk in a public manner about my terrifying little top surgery scheme, which is I am currently scheming about claiming a religious exemption and getting my tits back and offering them as a sacrifice to the gods in a ritualistic manner. Like, keeping in line with sort of documentation that we have of like things like human sacrifice. And this is my flesh consensually given, and it's legally possible. So I just wanted to, it's human sacrifice without all the murdering.
Just the face I made when you started this conversation.
I
That's
wanted
honestly,
to publicly say that somewhere, that I'm doing that I'm trying to do that.
I
was
think it's
hoping it would come
hilarious,
up
but brilliant.
organically.
More power to you. Absolutely 100%.
It's
mean,
legal, but I don't know if I'm gonna get the hospital to do it.
well, real talk, it's not a proper heathen podcast video or anything if there's not at least one moment that's going to have a casual listener like blow a fuse or three.
Yeah, I know. That's why I had to bring it up. And like the thing is, I've seen shit with like some denominations of Christianity will be able to get amputated body parts back to bury them. So why can't I claim religious exemption to get my tits back so I can sacrifice them?
And if anyone's a hospital administrator with thoughts on that, feel free to send them in. Yeah, is there any last things you'd like to close out on? That anything that you feel people need to especially understand about, trans practice of heathenry, heathen practice, being trans in our current world where entirely too many reactionaries are using your community as an easy target? Anything that you all can think of?
I'm just going to come out and say it. We've always been here. Throughout history, throughout cultures, the people who don't fit in your standard worldview, the ones who challenge the way you think about them, just we've always been here, and we're going to keep being here, and the cisgender people are going to keep making babies that end up being trans. And I think that's the thing that keeps getting kind of pushed back behind the door, is that we don't come along and turn people. We don't. That is not anything we do. We exist. And there will continue to be people born like us. So, if not for us, let us be the ancestors to the generations that follow.
And do y'all have any pluggables that you'd like to share? Any particular sites, resources, social media, SoundCloud, anything like that?
How long will this take you to edit and upload?
I should probably have this up by Wednesday.
By Wednesday? Okay. It's not a heathen resource or anything, but there is a trans woman on TikTok who is doing a TikTok-a-thon for trans healthcare. Her name is Mercury Stardust. You can find her on TikTok or just at mercurystardust.com. And she has a donation thing if anyone who has the ability to and would like to support trans people. She's a lovely woman who is just doing her best for the community. And she's just got this great energy about her, and she's just going to try to help more people in the community get healthcare. So if anyone can donate to that, that would be obviously amazing.
I will be honest, I am kind of having monetary survival issues right now. Ryan, I have posted the GoFundMe link in the Way of Fire and Ice server. I don't know if that's a thing that you can include with a podcast or not. And if it's not feasible, please.
That should be no problem.
Okay.
Let's go ahead with just a clean, go ahead and plug it real quick, because that'll make audio easier.
Okay.
And I can put the link in the description.
Okay. I'm currently going through some financial hardship, trying to make sure that I can pay bills and rent. I do have a GoFundMe. Ryan can provide the link to it. Any donations at all are extremely welcome. So, from the large community and support thing, and Elizabeth, I totally would support it if I could afford it, down to the specific and personal.
Um, uh, so if you think I'm interesting and you want to follow me on Instagram or whatever, my Instagram is dollarstore.mystic. Um, and I post about my music and sometimes heathen things, and yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thank you all for coming on again. And thank you all for sharing your experiences. This has been Ryan Smith at The Wayward Wanderer, now signing off. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to help support more work like this, then please head on over to patreon.com/waywardwanderer. $5 a month gets you early access to podcast episodes, ad-free listening, monthly patrons-only live stream sessions with your host and author of The Way of Fire and Ice, Ryan Smith, and more. Please head on over to patreon.com/waywardwanderer. Thanks for listening.